Welcome back to the Real Couchwives Podcast, where we overanalyze all things Bravo.
As I'm sure a lot of you have seen, Tom Sandoval, for some reason, agreed to do an interview with the New York Times that was called How Tom Sandoval Became the Most Hated Man in America.
And I'm sure you've seen the pull quotes on Instagram, but we read the full article to go over all the details and pick out the best bits for you guys, and we're going to break it all down right now.
So, Iris, we read this long article. What were some of the things that stood out to you, like main takeaways?
Main takeaway is I think that Tom Sandoval really does live in VPR land. Like, that's his home and his residence. No wonder why he doesn't want to leave the house that he and Ariana live in. They already have all of the lights covered with diffusers. That was my main takeaway from this article.
No, totally. I did too. He just this man is so out of touch with reality, and I think at one point the writer says that it's the scandal that has kind of done that, but like I'd probably argue it's always been there. Like, even the way they say that he recounts his life in like episodes and seasons, and he needs to like stop himself from, saying his inner monologues externally, which is what they're kind of encouraged to do with the show. Which it does almost kind of make you think a little bit about the long-term effects of being on a reality show like this for so long.
It definitely does. And it's interesting because I feel like we've spent a lot of time talking about how Raquel, she felt like this was all fake. And if she was so heavily influenced by Tom Sandoval, I can kind of see why she felt that way, because not that Tom Sandoval thinks it's fake, because I don't think he does, but he clearly does live in like a different world. Like, this is not a normal life, and I actually think that it probably is time for him to like take a step back from reality TV, just so that he can get that like consciousness again. Like, that's like, if you think about your life in terms of like high school, like that's the only other time that I can think of where you think of it as like freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, senior year. You're like, that's your season of like season 1, season 4, whatever. And he's just like permanently stuck in that well into his 40s.
It is. When they say that like celebrities who became popular like when they were young kind of have like arrested development, and they're like a little bit stuck in the age that they got famous.
Yes.
It's like kind of like he's stuck in the age that he was when VPR started.
Yeah, and even hearing him talk about like old VPR, he's like, the moment when I punched Jax in the face when I found out that he and Kristen had hooked up, like that's when everything changed for us. And like he has this kind of like glorification of this past and these good old days, and his life is just so wrapped up into Vanderpump Rules. And like obviously we knew that on some level, but I don't think I fully processed that until this article.
Yeah. They definitely pointed it out. Even like they were saying, I think at one point, what was the quote? Like at some times when he was talking, and then if there was like noise around, he would like just stop mid-sentence.
Yes.
Even if there was no cameras or mic, like it was literally a normal conversation, and he would pause as if he was in a confessional and like he had to redo the take.
Yeah, like can you imagine? It's like you're on the set of Gossip Girl, and all of the New York City streets are like, noises are happening, and you're just like, oh, we have to pause. There's a plane flying overhead.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
The quote there was so good too. I'm just trying to find it because it was pretty brutal the way that it was phrased.
Yeah, it really was. That is one thing that I appreciated about this article, is that the journalist really didn't like pull any punches. Like, she very much like, she was shady, she went after him. I think she was trying to be compassionate and could be understanding and accurately represent like what information she was getting and putting forward. But there was definitely like little undertones of like, oh, this guy is not okay.
No,
she conveyed that to us.
I mean, yeah, and okay, we got to get to the biggest part of this interview, which is the part that made a bunch of headlines, right? And this is when Sandoval was asked why he thought that the scandal got so big. And okay, I'm going to read it verbatim.
Okay.
He said, I'm not a pop culture historian really, but I witnessed the OJ Simpson thing and George Floyd and all these big things, which is really weird to compare to that, I think. But do you think in a weird way like it's kind of the same? No. In no ways is this the same.
Yeah, and even the way that he says, like, it's kind of weird to compare it to that, I think. Like, do you think? Because you're doing that right now. Like, that's not a good comparison. And that wasn't even the only comparison that he makes in this too. He like even compares himself to like Danny Masterson and feeling like he got more hate than Danny Masterson did, and it's just like, dude,
Yeah,
this is
dude, like
weird company.
you need to
like,
stop making analogies.
yeah,
Like someone just needs to like and it was bad. Like it was
yeah,
really bad to compare to these huge things where people, you know, have lost their lives that were there's a lot of obviously like racial tensions. Like these are
mm-hmm.
huge things that
Yeah,
captured the nation in a very different way than Scandoval did. And also
mm-hmm.
like why not talk about when Brad Pitt left Jennifer Aniston
Yeah,
for Angelina Jolie? Like that is more on the same
right.
scale.
There feels like there's like a million other comparisons that you could have made than either of those comparisons, and like the kind of just the tone deafness of that, like the self-aggrandizing of that too, like to put yourself on like this, this thing that happened to me is as big as these other things that were like sparked huge movements in the United States and brought up huge discussions in the United States, and it's like it's really not on the same level, dude. I'm
It's
sorry.
pretty
It's
scary. Yeah, and like
yeah.
you could just imagine Bravo when they found that out because clearly, you know, it got up to Alex Baskin and
Mm-hmm.
like the executive producer and they
Yeah.
essentially seemed to try to squash this interview.
Mm-hmm.
And
They're like, who
then
else can we offer you? You can have anybody. You can have all of them.
yeah, they're
Anybody and
like,
all of them.
what did he say about that exactly?
I'm sorry, what there was a comment made yesterday, I think. Could you
How
elaborate on
much
what he
money do
said?
you want? Just tell us the price.
Yeah, we will give it to you. Maybe he wasn't ready for this. Maybe this
Okay,
wasn't the right move.
and this is the other part of this.
Mm.
I am so confused why okay, actually I'm less confused why Tom Sandoval thought that this would be a good idea
Yeah,
because you can just see, of course, he
he's
was like, yeah, they
amazing.
want to interview me. Oh my God, this is going to be
Profile in the New
great.
York Times, of course. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I'm going to peddle my narrative. It'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't understand why like Bravo agreed to this because like they obviously interviewed like Alex Baskin. Like this went pretty high up.
Mm-hmm.
Did they all just have different hopes for what the season would become?
Well, so this actually made me think back to that Stassi podcast that she put out probably back in August after Rachel went on Bethany Frankel's podcast. Um, and Stassi talked about how Rachel was talking about how Bravo basically like cut out a scene between that was filmed between Rachel and Tom talking about like the videotape that he had taken or the video like the FaceTime recording that he had made and how he made a hissy fit, and basically they took out the scene for him. And Rachel talks about that with Bethany, and then Stassi goes on to talk about how like this was an experience that she had so many times with this cast, and I promise I'm making a point here. It's a tangent, but it's a point. This was like a problem that she had with the producers so often was that it always felt like they were taking the sides of the men, of
Right.
male cast members, because like she felt like they never would have made those like allowances for her. And I can kind of see why she thinks that, because we're now seeing season 11 air and we're seeing these allowances that are being made for him. Like it
Ugh,
feels like they
yeah.
are like fully throwing their weight behind trying to make this a redemption arc season for him, trying to get the cast on board, which they specifically call out in this article as well. And like just the amount of effort and like time that's being done by Bravo to like help this man along,
It's
even
true.
though he keeps doing this to them. Like he's now gone on like the Howie Mandel podcast and made a total fool of himself. He went on the what's it called the podcast, Nick
Nick
Vile,
Vile, yeah.
and
He
then
has
he
to
did
stop
this
doing press.
article.
He is not good at it.
Is not good at it. It was funny. We thought that Tom Schwartz was bad at it last year. Apparently, Tom Sandoval is much worse at it.
Oh my
Like
God.
so many levels.
It's so true. Yeah. I mean, they clearly have been trying to give him a redemption arc. and it is so brutal to watch play out on this season.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just so funny because then they just keep giving this man a microphone, and then he just keeps like reminding us all, like, nope, that he has not changed.
Mm-mm.
Even like the way that the writer, she was like, after he made that horrible comment, she's like, I think I knew what he meant. He was trying to express the oddity of becoming the symbolic center of a nationwide discussion and a major news story. What he communicated instead was something much more honest, which is just how much experience made him lose perspective. And that's just it. Like he just has no sense of like reality, or just
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just so strange. Like, he's on his talk track. You know what else it made me think of? That he
What?
had this really horrible, that he just keeps making these really horrible analogies.
Mm-hmm.
We brought this up before, is how much Ariana truly must have been checking him and like
Yeah.
keeping him in line for all of these years, because
Yeah.
clearly he's off the rails.
No, and that's just it, right? That's what she talked about in one of the podcasts that she did, maybe like Scheana's or something, where she was like, I always was like his translator, basically. Like, I would be able to understand what he was saying and I would communicate it back in like a slightly better way. And yeah, she definitely was doing that. And yeah, Tom Schwartz is, oh my god, the comment from Katie when this like article came out, and then he posted his, I think he posted his like apology, and somebody was taking a screenshot because you can't post to a story a comment, but anyways, um, and she's like, Tom Schwartz, what are you gonna do now to like help save this moment?
Yeah, she's like, can you translate for us what he was trying to say? And she was just like,
Just jump in here real quick.
she was like, what the actual F? Yeah, he got a
Yeah.
lot of heat from other Bravo Labs, as he should. Honestly,
Yeah.
like, I feel like those comments would cancel a person. Like, he is untouchable.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like even this article, like I have to admit, like reading this article kind of, I don't want to say it makes me feel for him, but I think I see how much this experience has screwed him up. And I have to admit, I walked away, and like the film nerd in me was like, this is Sunset Boulevard, this is like an old 1920s film star who thinks that after she's I'm gonna spoil the movie, shot somebody and the cameras are there to like film her because she's about to be taken off to prison, she's like, oh great, it's time for my close-up, like I'm now on a film set and this is my life. And it's a little bit like that twisted thing. And even the article, the journalist comparing him to the, what is it, he's morphed into a unique Los Angeles species. Like that
Yeah.
is a read.
Yeah. Apparently at the beginning they were talking, I guess, and they weren't recording yet. And he was like, oh, do you want to record?
Yeah.
And then she
Are
wrote
you ready
like,
to record this yet?
she's like, I couldn't remember interviewing a public figure as eager to speak into a recording device.
Right. And then at the very, and like literally the last like line of the article is how he's smiling and like lights up as soon as the cameras start to roll and he's about to film his confessional. It's so eerie. And
Yeah.
it's just such an interesting like peek into his actual essence and being and
Yeah.
everything.
Well, even at one point he's like, oh, like the scandal made the show so big, it's kind of cool and crazy, even though it's negative and at my expense. Like, he truly is like like all press is good press. Like, I think that's why he hasn't left during all this. And like his whole being is really tied up in being the show.
Yeah. Well, and that's just it. One of the points too, the Irina, my friend, says, "What's good for Vanderpump is good for Sandoval." And it's just like, oh, if that ain't the truth. It's also so crazy too, because he constantly is making these like film references, right? Like he kind of compares like how he wanted to be a Mactor, right? Or he was a Mactor and he wanted to be the next Brad Pitt. And he talks about in like most recent or 2 episodes ago in Vanderpump Rules, he compares himself to like Shawshank Redemption, and he's like always making these like movie references too. And he like talks about Uncut Gems and being like Josh Safdie's I guess not the muse, Josh Safdie's like Adam Sandler character, you know, tortured anti-hero kind of character, and how that's the life that he's living. It's like, oh
It's
boy,
just, but it's funny too,
you're
because then at
lost.
the end he's like, oh, I did used to have a lot of respect for reality TV stars, but now I don't have a lot of respect for actors. Like, you guys try doing this.
Can you imagine? Can you guys imagine what this would be like? Yeah,
it was very interesting. But yeah, he clearly thought it was going to play out differently. I think even they like referenced that at the beginning he was really excited. And then I think after, once I guess they'd wrapped filming and they started to do like confessionals, he didn't really want her to come back. And his demeanor had changed a lot.
And he'd probably gotten a bit of a talking to from the Bravo executives. Like, even she says when she comes back to the confessional filming, like, all of a sudden it's not like his publicist that's there, it's like Bravo's publicist that's there.
Yes, exactly. But then I think she also mentioned like he thought that the season was going to go differently, and I think he seemed really optimistic at the beginning, and that's probably also why he invited them there. And then I think once he started to realize that, you know, the fans weren't really changing their minds, maybe this is after BravoCon, like, I don't know, it started to change. It also just like kind of made me think of and I think it's because I watched too many like documentaries on cults. But
no such thing. Impossible.
A lot of them will like invite journalists over with like open arms, being like, oh my god, of course they would want to write this piece on me and how incredible I am. And like the most recent one that I just watched was actually Escaping Twin Flames Universe. It's on like Netflix and Prime. But basically like these two people who essentially are being compared to cult leaders, like very willingly brought the reporter in, and they were like, of course, this is my house, these are our teachings, come see all of the evidence against us, take our photo. And then when it's put out and it's negative, they're like shocked.
Well, even if you think about like the NXIVM documentary or like documentaries, because there are literally so many of them as well, which I have watched all of because I'm fascinated. If you think about the fact that like Keith Raniere, the leader of that cult, like brought Mark Vicente in because he was a filmmaker and he knew he could like record everything, and that he would record everything.
He's like, can you put evidence on me for 10 years?
That's just it. Like, the amount of footage that they have of this guy, it's unbelievable. And it's just so like, obviously, like, as a spectator, you're like, oh my god, fascinating, I can't believe it, like, I get to see all of this and like see how crazy this was. But also the fact that that exists and you were like so ready and willing, and you felt like you were so important that you had to have every moment of your life filmed.
It is crazy. We're not saying that Tom Sandoval's running a cult. But weren't people actually making those types of comparisons when Scandoval was happening, of him, of like having what's it called, like an not enigmatic, is that even a leader narcissist, that like you want to follow, and that has like all this like, I don't know what I'm saying.
I remember on She Speaks Bravo, Pia was always talking about how like Tom Sandoval gave off like cult leader vibes, and I don't think that she's wrong. And like, you know, even if you like think about like his little like birthday party that we saw like at the first couple episodes, second and third episode, I guess, of season 11, like it is giving a little bit cult leader. Like, all these people are there and they're like, yeah, Tom, you're so amazing. Ariana's the worst. She's so mean to you. It's so bad. Like,
oh my god,
you're never that far from being able to join a cult, guys. That's what the moral of the
weekly
story
reminder. Not to go too far into a tangent, but speaking of everyone just kind of like the people being around him, clearly I feel like he's literally given out notes for the people who are going to be in scenes with him. Like, God, this is what we say about Ariana, because Billie Lee on her podcast that she for some reason has basically was like, oh no, like I was friends with both of them, like I was friends with Ariana and I was friends with Tom, and like I love Ariana, but also Ariana sucks, and you know, I wasn't that surprised that it happened because they were more like siblings. And then Ariana started saying that I was living at her house and I'm not, and like F her, and like I'm the only person who takes care of their dogs, and without me, like,
Yeah, like what are you talking about?
Not a
Like,
single person could be convinced that Ariana does not love her animals or take care of her
no,
animals. And it was
not
just
a
like, it was
chance.
giving Ariana doesn't restock the batteries, so this is why I
Yeah,
did
it is
this.
giving that. And even this whole like Schwartz thing that he's doing this season, like I'm still so annoyed at Schwartz. And I think I'm gonna continue to be annoyed at Schwartz. Like these guys are just here like
To
peddling
push
Tom
this narrative.
Sandoval's narrative. And even it's happening in this article a little bit, right? Like she she addresses the whole how Tom says that he wanted to buy Ariana out of the house, and I'm like, as a Bravo historian, I would never give that to that point at the time of day. Come on.
It's so true, but that's like also what I was thinking about as I was reading it too, because it's like, yeah, like the reporter is taking what he has to say as
Yeah,
truth. Like
yeah,
she's
but she
obviously
has
not
to
going to go
do.
watch like 10 seasons of VPR to like understand.
Yeah,
And I think that's
but
the
if she had
danger a
talked
little.
to one Bravo person,
It's
like one of
true.
us could have told her.
You should have really listened to this article.
Yeah, exactly. Come on, I have notes.
That's the hard part too. It's like if you're talking to someone who is not the most trustworthy narrator, like
Mm-hmm.
how do you make an interview like this? But I do
Yeah.
actually what I did like I guess what was interesting about this one is like it was actually less about what he said and it was more about her kind of interpreting their
Yes.
interactions.
Yeah.
And
And if anything, it's good that she kind of came in a little bit blind because she didn't have any like she really just like was writing what she was seeing, which
mhm.
was good to get
Well, yeah, did
honest
you catch this
information.
part about I wrote it down because it was so savage.
Oh
She's
geez.
talking she's talking about the Housewives franchise and she's like, even Bravo's Real Housewives is more of a weekly cage match in which bloodied fighters are retired once they're no longer used. I was like,
I
oh
did.
sheesh, I don't think this person really likes reality TV very much.
Definitely doesn't respect the housewives, that's for sure. Yeah, I did notice that one. Granted, I mean, there was definitely a time and a place when Bravo, like the housewives in particular, were like that. I think that they're a little bit past that now. But there's been times, there's been moments,
It's
cage
crazy.
cage like experiences. Even in the just to kind of go back to like the fact checking of Bravo readers or whatever, even the moment when in the article she's talking about Tom and Ariana and how at one point they had been in love and they were these two bartenders and they like wrote a book together and it was called Fancy AF Cocktails, and like the Bravo lover in me is like, she butted into that, he butted into that book, it was supposed to be her book and it was with Danny Pellegrino. How dare you not bring up Danny Pellegrino's name? Danny Pellegrino deserves all the respect that we can give him. And
Yeah.
Tom did nothing. How dare he? And like, yes, of course, it's good that she put a follow-up cocktail book called Single AF Cocktail. She's allowed to do whatever she wants.
I know. It's so true. And they also like it was also written about too, like Ariana was like had the backing of the nation and she got all
Yeah,
these opportunities, whereas like
yeah,
Tom was the most hated man ever. And it's
yeah.
like,
As if he hasn't profited at all. Come on,
well, he brings that up
Sandoval.
as well. He actually says that he didn't capitalize on it as much as he would have liked. Apparently, he was supposed to have like he was supposed to make an appearance in Chippendales or something in Vegas, and then I guess got cut from it.
What?
Um, and
How did I
he,
miss that?
yeah, he said, it's frustrating, because everybody cashed in, everybody won on this, the cast, the execs, the network, everybody made so much money.
Yeah.
Um,
It's just
but
not really true. Like, it's not. I'm sorry.
also, like, yeah, I'm sorry, the person who started all this by cheating for 8 months, like, yeah, people are probably not going to want to give you brand deals. And, like, it's
Yeah.
just funny that he's like, I really feel like in his mind, he's like, I did this. Like, I am the
Yeah.
gift that revived
Yeah.
Vanderpump, and I
Yeah.
am why Ariana is on Broadway, and I get
Yeah.
nothing except for
Yeah.
being on whatever
Special
what that
forces. Special
special
forces and
forces.
the masked singer. Yeah, yeah, well, and even like even his like telling of the moment when he hits Jax and how that's like the moment that the show took off. And
Yeah,
it's like,
it's
I'm
like,
sorry, like that was a moment, that wasn't the moment. Like
yeah,
the whole it's like from start to finish, that show was like filled chock-a-block.
Yeah.
How is that how you say that? With like just epic moments, like from the very first episode.
Like literally,
that didn't happen till the end of the second season.
Stassi and Jocks have broken up. Did I say Stassi and Jocks?
Jocks.
I don't know what's
Jocks
happening
and
today. It's been a long week. Literally, they're in Mexico in episode like 3 or 4, and there's like the fight in the alleyway, and like Jax is cheating and getting a girl pregnant, and like no, like it wasn't because you punched him that this.
They're drinking his Cristal. There's Laura Lee. There's Frank. Like there's so many things that are happening, and also I'm pretty sure the episode, if it's not the exact same episode, when Tom Sandoval hits Jax, is also when Stassi backhands Kristen.
Yes.
And that is like the most like moment. Like I just can't, I can picture that in my head so much more clearly when I think about Vanderpump Rules than Jax being hit by Tom Sandoval.
It's so funny. Well, they also,
but obviously it all centers around him, so
yes. Well, even Alex Baskin said it. He basically is like, Tom Sandoval lives in Tom Sandoval land, and he's like, you know, some people might think that it's performative, but this is literally just him.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, because we talked about it a little bit, how like Tom Sandoval, like in the house that he like shares with Ariana, how like all of the lights, like all the light fixtures and everything are like taped over so that they like are basically permanently set up for Vanderpump Rules to be filmed, and they live in that 24/7, and they used to take it down in between seasons, but they don't anymore because it's easier. And like Alex Baskin talks about how he like lives in this like state of like hyper reality, and it's like, yeah, you live on a television set.
It's so true.
In the house with your ex-girlfriend because you wouldn't leave, and you think that this is a normal thing. Like you, like even the moment when I guess she talks about how he talks about how when Tom Sandoval wants to talk to Tom Schwartz, he calls up productions like, hey, how fast can you get here, because I want to talk to my best friend. Like, that's crazy. That's not normal.
But I'm sure after listening to enough Reality Bites, apparently one of the biggest problems with Southern Charm is that when they're filming a season, that is what they want them to do. Like, they don't want all these moments to happen off camera, and Southern Charm don't do that. Whereas apparently Vanderpump Rules is very well trained, whereas they will keep it on camera.
Right, and I respect that, and I think that, you know, but it's just, I still feel like it's a bad experience. Like, it's a bad experience for your mental health and your sanity.
He's just gotten too good at performing in this way. And that's what Alex Baskin says too. He's like, his entire existence becomes about processing and talking about what had happened.
Yeah.
Which is so interesting. You know what? As I'm reading this too, though, I don't think Scheana's very far off from this.
No, not at all. No, I don't think so. I kind of think that Katie's like maybe a little bit more grounded. I think that she's like a little bit more removed from the whole hubbub of this. Even like her listening to her podcast, I think somebody commented this as well on one of our most recent episodes. You know, Katie doesn't really talk about Vanderpump Rules when she does her podcast now. It's like it's a new podcast, so there's only a few episodes in, but not really like addressing it too much, and not really like making that like the focal point of what she's talking about.
I don't think her whole identity is as wrapped up in it as like Tom is, or as I would argue Scheana is as well, which is also probably why Tom and Scheana are more able or willing to go along with certain things for the sake of
deal with certain
the show.
Well, and I guess that also, because so one thing that's revealed in this article is they talk about how season 9 was like, you know, VPR was like hobbling along, like basically on the brink of being canceled. And I know that Ariana and Scheana addressed this in Scheana's podcast in the summertime, because they were like, no, that wasn't the case, because I think they were responding to Raquel talking about how Scandoval saved VPR. They were like responding to Alex Baskin's like comment as well back in the summertime. So much stuff happened in the summer. But basically, like, Alex Baskin like confirms in this, like, no, it was hobbling along, like it was on its last legs, and obviously Scandoval breathed new life into it. But he also talks about how as they were filming season 11, I think this is what we're seeing unfold right now with Lala and Scheana all of a sudden kind of like getting with the program and being like, no, we need to get Tom Schwartz into this. We need to get Tom Sandoval into this. We need to start talking to them. We need to make this all come together, because they had this moment when like the cast basically had to come to Evolution Studios and like have this like come to Jesus moment where they had to be told like, you guys need to get your act together, otherwise like we might not have a season next year. And obviously all of these people are like hugely reliant on this income.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
I would be reliant on that income too. That is some pretty crazy income. So
I was pretty surprised that they said that. And then he also said, I wasn't sure if this was about like season 9 or season 11, but he was saying like, you know, we could probably squeeze one more good season out of it, but after that I don't know. And and is that talking about now because the friendships are so fractured?
Yeah, the way that I read it was that he was talking about how like season 11 could be an okay season if they all come together and actually like work on it together, but if they don't, then they don't really have much of a choice for like what's going to happen next.
But I'm so confused about that positioning, because what we're watching now, like, no one is happy with. Like, I know it, like, the storyline of just them really trying to give Sandoval like this victim arc is not landing. So no. I don't understand why. I don't understand how they could have read it so wrong.
I mean, I can kind of understand how they read it so wrong, because I feel like they often read it so wrong. I think that they thought that was where the storyline was going to be having Tom Sandoval still be part of the group. And I just think that you're like forcing something to happen that like none of us want to watch. Like, how could we possibly be moved on from what happened last year? And I know that some people are, and so, you know, maybe that's just me, but like, how could we be moved on when like this is the last thing that we've seen, and we got so riled up and we got so invested in this, and now you're all just friends, and it's
that's just it
wrong. Like, but it feels fake.
But it's not only that, it's also like, okay, I understand there has to be some people filming with this dude if he's going to be in the show. Like, we've talked about this before, like on the seasons with Summer House when everyone hates each other, like it's not fun to watch. Yeah. But couldn't you somehow incorporate him back into the group, even at like the auxiliary, without having to turn him into a victim and turn Ariana into a villain? Like, why was that the way they had to go about it?
I completely agree. And like, why did the cast so naturally fall into that pattern, right?
I think it's because they're jealous of Ariana.
It's because they're jealous, and this show has a history of thinking that women are the problem.
Yeah. But especially from the women, like even like Lala's whiplashing is like getting really intense. She literally like she'll come for Schwartz, and we were like, yes, that was a great scene, Lala.
What a good read.
And then the next time she's like, I think you handled yourself really well in that conversation, and Ariana's the problem.
Yeah. Katie was so mean to you last season. I completely agree that you should have kissed Raquel.
Yeah. Oh my god. Anyway, sorry, we're going a little bit everywhere, but it was very interesting. Oh, okay. Another thing I want to talk to you about in this episode is his PR crisis person, Riley, who is 23 years old.
Yeah, and a fan.
And clearly a fan. My favorite quote was, I remember watching Vanderpump Rules in middle school and being like, oh my god, this is so great.
This is so good.
And then he was like, yeah, dude, it was awesome. And she's like, yeah. And it was giving like, dude. Dude, where's my car? That's what that was from.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That was, you know, I guess you do have a 23-year-old as your PR manager, and that sounds totally appropriate. Like, to think that she could be 23 years old and already be in crisis PR, I don't know, it seems,
but clearly like not doing her job if she didn't intercept one bit of this interview.
Well, she like so basically after he said like the George Floyd OJ Simpson comment, she basically like went upstairs after he was done and like talked to him, and that was like it. And it was just like, you didn't want to like step up in the middle and be like, hey, that's not on the record. Like, we're taking that off the record right now.
This guy needs like cue cards. Like, he needs to like prep.
Oh, sorry. That just reminded me of like another eerie moment because at the end of the article, she's like, the journalist is there watching him do his confessional, and he like reads his confessional in two different ways. Here, let me see if I have it. Okay, so he's talking about like a water tasting that they do. I guess
Oh
they do it in
yeah.
like Lake Tahoe or something. Oh no, they did it in August. I don't know where they did it then. But they found a water tasting, and I guess everybody's going sober, so that's what they decided to do. And so he reads these like back to back. Basically, he's like, I have never even remotely heard of a water tasting before in my life. And then he tries again. I have never heard of or been to a water tasting, but here we are. And it's just like, oh my God, it's so eerie to think that that's how confessionals like get.
I didn't even process that. I guess because I was reading it late.
Maybe. Well, and also the like different things you'd like pick up on, right? But like there's just like so many like little like behind the scenes things that are happening in this article that really just like, whoa, that's it never occurs to me that like they say things like multiple times, and obviously that's how they do it because like
It's
yeah,
true. One
but
thing he said too that is like just interesting is that they basically have to live the same experience 3 times, right? Like they
mm,
live it in like when it happens, and
yeah.
then they have to go and like add their narrative back on top of it for the confessionals like a few months
Hmm.
later, and then they have to see it air.
Yeah, and live it all over
So
again.
like
And that's just it. Like Kyle Chan like says to him like just one more time you have to live through it and then you're done. It's like maybe you should get out of here.
oh my
Maybe
god,
you
when
should
he
go home.
okay, he Kyle Chan also jumped on the like making weird movie and TV analogies when he
Oh
was
good.
saying that Tom was like he related him to someone in Game of Thrones who was
Oh
like
yeah, to
castrated and like
Theon
run through
Greyjoy.
the city or something.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, I don't know. Like I feel like Theon Greyjoy became such a complex character, and you know, I'm in my heart of hearts, I'm sure that Tom Sandoval is a more complex character than that, but I also just don't know if I like that comparison.
Their comparisons were all over the
The comparisons are
place.
really all over the place.
What else? What else do we have here? Oh yes. I feel like they also like confirmed how much money they're making, which has
mm,
always been kind of like spoken about,
yeah.
like hinted at.
Hmm.
Saying that they made so the first season cast made $10,000 for the whole
And the
season.
entire season.
They didn't know what it was at
Unbelievable.
that point.
Yeah, I know, but still, what a
Yeah,
steal.
no, it's yeah, that's wild. But now apparently the OG cast could be making closer to $35,000 an episode.
Which, like, is it weird that I thought that that sounded like it was less than I thought it was gonna be?
Yeah,
Like, if Raquel was making 19, like,
that's
how are
why I
they only
wonder if
making
it's not.
35?
They've like never been able to say that, so
Yeah,
I do wonder, yeah, how
maybe
accurate that is.
maybe they put that out there so that like other casts won't know, and they're just like, yeah,
Yeah,
we'll go with 35 so that nobody knows.
it's yeah,
Because we don't
it's
want
so
people
weird.
talking about salary here. We don't want
No.
you guys to start getting ideas. Don't go talking to BravoCon about what you're making. But I did look that up, and for 18 episodes, that would be, I don't know if you,
$630,000.
$630,000. That's an insane amount of money. I realize it's before taxes, but that's still an insane amount of money to make in a year
It's wild.
for
No,
like,
that they're doing okay.
yeah, you're selling your soul, but that's a nice price tag.
At what
A
cost?
good price tag for your mental health, apparently.
Did you also notice that he said his brother asked him to delete photos of them
Yeah,
together? And I was like, he
that
has
is
a
funny.
brother?
I didn't know that.
Has he literally ever once brought up that he has a brother?
I also don't know why he needed to delete. Like, were people really reaching out to his brother? Like, that's so. I just don't understand people, I guess. Like, some of the things, like, I despise Tom Sandoval, but I would never go right on any of his posts. Like, I wouldn't go
No.
onto his Instagram and be like,
We'll
you're
just
an
talk
awful
about him in our
person.
podcast.
Exactly. Like, dignified people. So to like then also like go to his brother and like like search through his photos, like go like check out like his tags and like post on like somebody else's thing like, hey, your brother's an awful person or whatever. I'm sure much
Yeah.
worse things than that, but
I know, I never understand that. Or like just people
I
who
don't
will
get
go
it.
onto celebrities' pictures just to be like, why did you say this? Or like, wow,
You're an
so
awful
happy you
human
had a baby,
being.
but you actually suck.
Yeah. I know the parasocial relationships maybe are getting a little bit too out of hand, but yeah.
I was gonna say Sandoval did come out and actually like reference an apology to what he said and said that he was embarrassed, which
Hmm.
is, I guess, more than what we've heard before, but that's all
Yeah,
we heard about it.
that was about it. Yeah, it didn't really feel like he like dug in. He didn't really feel the need to like dig in deep or like bare his soul for this article. But he also, so one my last little thing was also that he talks about the moment when Ariana found out
Oh yeah.
and how she like they'd like gone like behind like the back alley of like Tom Tom or whatever, and he says, and I thought this was interesting, she beat my ass, which is weird wording because that's what you said Scheana said about Raquel when they
Oh
found out
my
as
god,
well, right? Like it
yeah.
was the whole like Scheana allegedly like got the phone off of Raquel and was like, I just beat her ass.
Yeah, we were like,
And
that is not even
that
language
doesn't
that
sound like
Scheana would
anything that
take.
Scheana doesn't say. And it's
Wow.
just like weird how he like has these like default like settings that he kind of like sort of recycles in his head. And he's like, yep, that's what Ariana did to me. That's what Scheana did to Raquel.
That's so
Batteries,
true. That's so
paper
true.
towel, toilet paper, all
Well,
that good
this is
stuff.
the whole thing, right? And this is, I think, like, we keep going back to it, but like, no one is saying that he needs to be in this perpetual state of like non forgiveness. Like, eventually people will get over this, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just like, he fundamentally has not processed what happened.
No.
It's very evident that he doesn't understand. And that's why he sticks to his talk track,
Mm-hmm.
very similar to what Raquel used to do. But
Mm-hmm.
now we're actually seeing Raquel change
Yeah, she's
the
actually
way
breaking
she's
out
looking
of
at
it.
it.
Yeah.
And he is saying the same thing that he's been saying. Like, the fact that we're now watching a season from this summer, from months and months and months ago, and he
Mm-hmm.
has not changed any of what he's saying. If anything, he's doubling down on the after show. And
Mm-hmm.
now he's going, and even beyond the after show, he's going on to interviews. He is literally, he is his own impediment to us getting over this. Like, if you would
Yeah.
just go away and like
Yeah.
process and
Yeah.
then maybe come back later with some like different opinions.
That would be amazing. That would be super interesting. Can you imagine how good a season where he like actually like has gone away and processed and actually come back and reflects and like shows us like how he's changed and how he's grown? Like that would be incredible. And we would watch that and he just, I don't know, he's in his own way, but he's also like stuck in this thing. I don't know. I kind of hope that Vanderpump does take him off next year if they
Like
get another season.
like for his own mental sanity.
Yes.
But it's true. And
Yeah.
then also reading
Get
this
off the
article
Netflix
makes you
review.
realize like he is in this perpetual state of hyper realism and like non-reality, that of course he's not going to get any better. Of course he's
Mm-hmm.
not going to get any perspective when he's stuck in this like reality loop.
Yeah. And his house is literally a set.
And his house is literally a set. And like, I feel like maybe it will sound like we're saying that reality is not real, and we literally have in every episode we're like, VPR is real.
So
You
real.
guys don't understand. And it's not that, but it's more just like, even these friendships are real. I really do believe that on VPR
Mm-hmm.
this is their real dynamics. I think, yeah, as the show gets more popular, they're obviously going to start to self-produce a little bit, and that's a bit of
Of
a problem that
course.
all reality TV starts to fall into. But yeah, even like seeing this article now, when they say things like, you are kind of encouraged to say things out loud that maybe
Mm-hmm.
you normally wouldn't in
Yeah.
like a group setting, the fact that he's so like trained to be in
Mm-hmm.
that mindset, it
Mm-hmm.
kind of makes you see why he's in this
Yes.
a little bit longer. But like, it's all
Yeah.
still real.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And why he behaved the way that he behaved at like the Nick Vile podcast and stuff, right? Like, because he doesn't need to like self-edit. He doesn't need to do any of those things, both because he's in Los Angeles. He's this morphed unique Los Angeles species.
Yeah.
Where he's like surrounded by yes men that like just agree with him and are like, yeah, you're totally right. Yep, that's amazing.
It's
good insight. And then he's like in a TV show where it's like, yeah, just say everything that you think, and that's exactly what your job is, and you've fulfilled your job, and so there's nobody to like, you know, question him. And even when Ariana did used to do that, like in the very brief kind of like part of their relationship when she was in the like questioning him phase,
he would get so mad.
He would get so mad, and he would be so insulted that she would ever like, you know, so hard to be a cis man. Yeah, he's just, yeah, like he doesn't want that, and he's like confused when he's accosted by that, or feels like he's being accosted when that happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, just.
But the funny thing too, though, is that I actually find him more like we've talked about this, he's been a little bit more subdued this season, so like he is able to edit himself. I think because he knows he's trying to get a villain arc, he's being very intentional in the way he's trying to have himself be portrayed in the show, which is makes it so much more confusing why he's like such a train wreck on interviews.
But I think that he is still like a bit of a train wreck this season, right? Like he's a master manipulator who is very good at kind of like figuring out what people need, right? Like I think I can't remember which podcast it was I was listening to, but it was either Rachel's podcast where she talks about love bombing, and she has like that like person on, like a specialist. But then there's also the like pop psych guy on YouTube. One of them was talking about how like narcissists or like narcissistic tendencies is that you bring somebody a gift, and you present them with this gift, and it kind of like, you know, it knocks things off kilter, because it's like, yeah, you're like, oh, you've brought me a gift, so I need to say thank you.
Oh my god, like when he brought the shoes to Schwartz?
Yes, he brings the shoes to Schwartz, he brings the flowers to Lisa. Even when he starts that conversation with Scheana, like, you know, he didn't show up, he didn't have a gift because he didn't know he was going to run into her, allegedly, I don't know. But he's like, let me give her an amazing compliment. Let me tell her she looks so good. She looks like Shania Twain rolling in on that music video, and like, oh, girl, yeah, yes, queen, you slayed. Like,
that's such a good point. Okay, yes, he is still looking like a train wreck, but it's because when he gets knocked off his course, he gets really triggered, and he's still very defensive. But you can still see him trying to lay the groundwork.
Yeah.
He's not doing it well, but he's trying, and he has a way that he's trying to make himself be portrayed. So it's just so weird that when he goes on and does interviews, it's just like
trying.
And I feel like it's because he's just seen that it's not working, and now he's just like, who cares? I'm just like, whatever. Yeah. Or he's in just this perpetual loop of like, woe is me.
Yeah. But he's also like, it's, you know, like now that he's been in this like villain edit for like the last like 9 months, almost 11, almost 12 months. Like this is now like, maybe this is his new personality, right? He's like, yeah, I am the villain. Let me sit back with my baseball cap down to here and like tell you how it is.
You want a
Let
new
me tell
villain?
you why Ariana's wrong.
You want a new villain? Here I am.
Yeah, exactly. You tell him, Jaya Jenkins. Oh my god, biggest flop of Bravo history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting. But did we ever think that there would be, you know, VPR on New York Times?
Right? Yeah, I know. I love it.
This is our Super Bowl. It is finally getting the recognition it deserves.
Yeah, VPR made it to CNN, but VPR's now made it to the New York Times. That's where it's at.
Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah, definitely an interesting article. Actually, more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I have to admit, I kind of thought that the like pull quotes that we saw on Instagram was going to be kind of it, but there was actually a lot more to like really dive into than what you could just really capture in like a couple screenshots. So
yeah, and they did like they tried to make it so that it's not just for Bravo fans. Like they
Yes.
definitely like had to explain everything and like try to make it so that the average person could also read it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I wonder what else the cat, like, I guess no one else has really said anything about it except for the really horrible
I don't think so. Yeah, just
quotes.
the Katie comment. I haven't seen anybody else talk about it.
I mean, Gertie and Nicole from Miami
Yes.
went after him as they should have.
I didn't see Nicole's response. I saw Gertie's, which I loved, but
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
They're both basically just like, you need to apologize right now. And it's
Yeah.
Black History Month. Like,
Yeah.
oh God, this man could not have put his foot any further into his own mouth.
Technically, he said it back in December.
Oh my God, do you think he's just been sitting there knowing this was going to come out, being like, oh God?
Oh, I don't think he cares.
No.
I don't think he cares. He's like, I can't wait for my New York Times article to come out. I took so many cool photos. I look like such a cool dude.
It's true, because he probably doesn't see it until it comes out, and then he's like, oh God, I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah. Oh, I did such a good job. Look at how many nice... I did such a good job. I did the thing.
I'm actually surprised that after Bravo hearing about what he said, they even let him continue to go and do any sort of interviews at all. I'm surprised they're not just like, please stop talking. Oh, also, so I haven't listened to his podcast because I can't do it.
Impossible.
I didn't realize it was literally a recap. Did you know that it's a recap? It's a VPR recap
podcast?
Or like at least his past few episodes have been recapping. And I feel like you can't recap the show that you're on.
Yeah, I feel like that's weird.
Right?
I'm surprised.
And he has like Kyle Chan come and recap with him.
Is Tom Schwartz on it too?
Sometimes.
I'm confused by that.
Sometimes.
I just feel like it's unfair for him to... I hope he's like paying these people. Like, I feel like it's unfair for him to like bring them on and be like, here, be on my awful podcast.
But like, it's just so like...
so mean.
It's so weird that he has a recap podcast about the show that he's on, which obviously is just going to be him trying to like...
talk about the after show stuff like more. Like, it's just
if he was
version of the unfiltered version of the after show.
You'd think at least he would use the opportunity to maybe smooth out some of the things that he said, but instead he seems to just double down on them. So what is the point?
Doesn't surprise me at all. I don't know what the point is. I'm very confused. I just don't even know why he needed a podcast. Like, I get it. You think that everybody else but you like capitalized on Scandoval, but like, I don't know. Did we need this? Did the world need this? Also, why does Scheana get to be so mean to Raquel about Raquel having a podcast, but doesn't care about Tom Sandoval having a podcast? Like, it's so true. Raquel has nothing to talk about but Scandoval, but Sandoval has nothing to talk about but Scandoval.
But like, all of you have only talked about Scandoval also.
Yeah, big time.
Like, Rachel put out a pretty good clip that was like, when Scheana called her out about having nothing else to talk about, and then it's just a compilation of Scheana talking about Scandoval.
Yeah. That's just it. Like, come on, those who those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw rocks.
Yes,
which Scheana just bought a $2.59 million house with those rocks.
Shiny rocks. It's pretty funny though, because you've been listening to the Raquel podcast, but I've been hearing like snippets of it, and like our first at first we were like, she doesn't need to have this, she's just going to go on peddling the same stories, and then actually seeing her change, I do think the tide is going to turn on the way that we think about her. And it could have turned on Tom Sandoval too if he would just sit down. Sorry, we keep going back to it, but I'm just like, I can't.
Yeah, well, and I think it's interesting because he does talk about in the article, and it's like, it kind of only just dawning on me that the article was written only in the last like month or so, and he still thinks that there's a world in which Raquel comes back.
Oh yes, that's true.
Is that his own kind of like, well, why wouldn't you come back? And he does say like, well, what else is she gonna do? And it's like, well, I guess that's fair. But like, I don't know, like, do we think she's gonna come back? Do we think that would be likely? Like, would Bravo even have her back now that she's been like both on Bethany's podcast, and I guess it would give them a storyline for season 12.
I think they would have her back. I think they just brought Jax back. Like, nothing is gonna ever if they see a financial opportunity for her to come back,
spin-off. Like, come on.
Yeah, because that's what we need in our life.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what we
didn't it?
really need in our
Did
life.
it premiere yet? But
No, not yet. I think it's
No.
coming out in like April.
Yay.
Yeah.
But Summer House is out.
Yeah, Summer House. So exciting.
Yeah.
I am so excited for this season. I cannot wait to just you know, it's bad, but I'm just excited to see what happens. I'm very curious.
I'm excited too. And also it seems like the cast is like having fun with each other again, which is like so needed.
We love to see it.
Yeah, we'll be doing recaps on Summer House, on VPR, other stuff that comes out.
That's probably all we can do right now. That's a lot. That's already a lot.
It is a lot. Well, let us know if you read the article. What did you think? How are you liking the season so far?
And let us know if you're watching Summer House too. So we can, yeah.
Yay.